Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and absolutely shatter a massive illusion about how you think your own brain works. Today, we're unpacking the wax diorama, how your brain builds your past. And honestly, if you're someone who trusts your memory completely, you might want to brace yourself, because we are about to completely change how you view your own mind.
So look, you probably think of your memory as kind of like video files on a smartphone, right? You experience something, you hit record, it saves to a hard drive in your head, and then you just press play whenever you want to remember it. That's the colloquial view anyway. But reality, well, as modern neuroscience shows us, it's actually this fierce, active reconstruction process. Remembering isn't just pulling up a permanent file. It's actively rebuilding and sometimes fundamentally altering the event right there in your mind.
Section 1. Building the wax diorama. Let's look at how memories are actually made. Think about it. Every single day, you are just bombarded with sensory information. So when you see something completely novel, like let's say a crow and a squirrel getting into an intense turf war in the park, how does your brain actually capture that? It happens through a really cool process called hippocampal indexing. You see, your hippocampus doesn't actually store the content of the fight. The sights, the sounds, the surprise, all those details are processed way up in your neocortex. What the hippocampus does is create an index, almost like a blueprint, connecting those totally distinct neural assemblies together so they make a single event. Then, through initial consolidation, this crazy activation pattern of millions of neurons eventually hardens into a proper long-term memory. I want you to think of it like a giant wax diorama being etched into your brain. It becomes this beautiful, stable scene of hardened wax, displaying that single moment of your life. And it feels permanent, doesn't it? It feels entirely fixed.
Section 2. The glue of memory. What actually makes these memories stick?
Obviously, not every passing thought gets to become a hardened wax sculpture, right? Trivial stuff just decays. Consolidating a memory that actually sticks around happens in 3 distinct phases. First, stabilization hits almost instantly. We're talking milliseconds. But then comes enhancement, which can take anywhere from a few minutes to several days. And finally, integration. This can take hours or literally years as your brain meticulously weaves this new memory of the epic squirrel fight into your pre-existing knowledge networks.
But what is the actual glue holding this all together? The biggest one is emotional arousal. Your amygdala, which is basically the emotion center of your brain, literally tags these arousing events. Whether it's the sheer terror of a sudden loud noise or the absolute joy of walking into a surprise party, this emotional tag strengthens the synaptic plasticity in your hippocampus. It flags the event like a giant neon sign telling your brain, hey, this is crucial for our survival. Do not forget this.
Now, beyond just raw emotion, a few other factors act as memory glue. Things like novelty and surprise trigger dopamine drops that massively boost retention. Repetition does it too, like every time you enthusiastically tell your friends about that squirrel fight, you're etching the memory deeper. And here is a wild fact. This is exactly why a good night's sleep is absolutely vital. During the slow oscillations of deep sleep, your hippocampus is actually replaying these memory assemblies over and over, locking them in. That means without sleep, you literally forget more of your own life.
Section 3. Melting the wax. Because it turns out remembering is actually modifying.
All right, so we've built our wax diorama, and it feels safely stored away. But here is the ultimate plot twist of this explainer. Remembering your past is actually a destructive act. Yeah, you heard that right. When you recall that squirrel fight at a party, the light of your attention bathes those neurons in chemicals that make the wax soft and moldable all over again. This is called memory reconsolidation. Suddenly, the memory isn't a permanent fixture anymore, it becomes totally vulnerable, unstable, and entirely open to being changed.
Let's break down exactly how this happens. The second a memory is retrieved, it enters this unstable window. And this is where the magic or the mischief happens. New information sneaks in. The new context of you just laughing with your friends, maybe you're in a great mood, or maybe you just exaggerate a few details for dramatic effect, all of that actually seeps into the biological memory. The synapses reconfigure. Then the memory is stored again. The diorama hardens back up, but it is permanently updated. So the next time you think about it, you might remember the event as being way funnier or way more intense than it actually was.
Section 4. Rewriting our painful pasts. How this all applies to healing from trauma.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is just a quirky biological flaw for party tricks. But actually, this mechanism is the brain's built-in tool for profound healing. To get this, we have to look at how trauma affects the brain.
During a highly traumatic event, your brain essentially goes into pure survival mode. The amygdala totally hijacks the system, and your logical, reflective center, the prefrontal cortex, just goes offline. So the memory doesn't get processed normally. It gets stored in this fragmented, highly emotional way, locked in the amygdala, which makes your body feel like the danger is still happening right now, even if it was years ago.
And this is exactly where therapy steps in to utilize memory reconsolidation. By safely revisiting hurtful memories in a therapeutic context, you can intentionally melt that hardened wax. You retrieve the memory, making it unstable. But this time, instead of panic, the therapist helps introduce a corrective emotional experience, maybe a feeling of safety, empowerment, or resilience. That new emotional context actually seeps into the soft wax. You are literally rewiring your brain. You aren't erasing the facts of what happened, of course, but you are completely changing its psychological impact on your present self. It's incredible.
The implications of all this are just absolutely staggering. Your memories are the foundational lore of your entire life, but they are not static. They are a continuously updating narrative, shaped by your current emotions, your new knowledge, and your present context. Since every single recollection melts the wax and updates the story of your life, we really have to ask, who are you building right now? Your past is always in motion, which means your future is entirely in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it blew your mind as much as it did mine.